So one of my favorite parts of this show, a running theme of this podcast, is that every week we talk to people that are in their 20s, that are going through the everyday grind, trying to figure it out. It is something that I care passionately about because throughout all your life is kind of scripted. But after you get out of college or after you get past 21, 22, it's open season. You don't know where to go, who should I hang out with? Who are my friends? How do I make friends? The dating scene is completely different because all of that was previously built in for you. So it's a whole new ball game and it throws a lot of people off. So navigating your 20s is something that I'm really passionate about, that I love talking to people about on this show. What drives people, what motivates people, what scares people. And another person that is very interested in that same headspace as me is today's guest on the podcast, Jillian Bennett, the mastermind behind the @FullyFriday accounts on TikTok, IG, fullyfriday.com, 315,000 followers on TikTok. So very impressive, Jillian. You are a rock star. Thank you for joining me. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yes. So as I said, 315,000 followers on TikTok. You put out videos constantly where you just give advice to people in their 20s, how to navigate certain situations, work, jobs, relationships, dating, all of that good stuff. I'm just really curious to know, how did you first come up with that idea?
So I'm 29, almost 30, and my younger cousin is 22, and she just graduated college last year. And she kind of looks to me as an older sister and was like, I can't find a job. I feel like such a loser, blah, 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 just being so hard on herself. And it kind of sparked my memory of my 20s being an absolute roller coaster of, emotion and being hard on yourself and comparing yourself. And I thought, there's probably a lot of other girls and guys out there that feel this way. So let's see. So I kind of just started creating videos and it went from there.
Now, a lot of people say that they want to do things like that. A lot of people say that they want to make videos or podcasts or blogs about whatever, but then they actually don't, because it's really hard to put yourself out there. It's hard to get in front of a camera or to just put stuff out there because people will think about you one way or they'll criticize you or whatever. So how did you get over the hump to just do it and not care what other people think?
Yeah, I think if I was 25 or 26, it would have been a different story. Now that I'm older, you kind of just care less what people think about you. You kind of take a different perspective, or at least I have as I've gotten older. And so I think remembering that nothing is ever perfect when you get started is really important, and that you just need to put something out there and see what happens, and just get moving. And that's sort of what I did. But like I said, if I was younger, I probably would have cared a bit more about, like, oh, what if someone sees me that I know, or, what if someone doesn't like it? And now I just don't really care.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice. The person that we had on the podcast last week just said, similarly to starting a business as a young person, just get started. Just get started. And that is something that and that when I started this podcast, it was kind of like, I'm a perfectionist. There's so many details that I wanted to hammer out. But I was like, if I get bogged down into all of that, I'm never actually going to start. Just do it and figure it out on the fly, figure it out as you go. So I fully agree with you there. Now, as a content creator, if you will, how do you go about strategizing, how many videos to put out a week or what you're going to say, et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah, I didn't really come up with a strategy. When I first started, I said, okay, consistency always pays off. So let's see if it works here. I'm going to put out at least 1 to 2 videos every single day and just see what happens. And so I did that for about 4 months. And now I'm kind of like, every day or every other day. But when it comes to planning the actual content, it's kind of the day of. It's just things that either people have reached out to me about and I'm like, oh, that's a great topic to talk about, or things that I'm feeling personally and I'm like, oh, I should make a TikTok on this. So as a content creator, I'm not very good at planning things ahead of time, but sometimes that makes it better because it's more genuine in the moment.
Yeah, I totally feel that. A lot of people, when they get started on their journey of creating whatever it is that they're putting out, it usually takes a long time to build any semblance of an audience, to get views, clicks, etc. What was the beginning like for you?
Yeah, it was sort of the same as everyone else that gets started on a new platform or TikTok. It was like, oh, you get excited by 200 views and a couple of likes, and then you have your first video that sort of takes off. And TikTok, I would say, is like the wild, wild west. It's not like any other platform. So to have that ability to go viral is pretty cool. But, it was kind of just neat, like I said, to see how consistency pays off. If you stick with something, even on those days where you're like, wow, nobody is watching my stuff, nobody's liking, no one's engaging, and you say, okay, I'm still going to put out a video or a podcast or whatever the next day, it really does truly pay off. So my biggest piece of advice for getting started on any platform would be consistency.
When you deal with, listen, TikTok is it is the wild wild west, and when you get out into that space, there's a lot of nasty people out there, as we know from online. So I imagine no matter how good-hearted your intentions are, that you probably deal with some not too great people, not too great comments. How do you navigate that?
Yeah, I think at this point in my life, I realize if somebody's coming at you in a negative way, then that's more on them than it is on me. You kind of have to be empathetic to them. Like, wow, if they're putting this much negativity out there, they must be in a bad space. So that's the first way I approach it. The second way I think about it is no matter what you do, there's always going to be people that don't like it or associate with it. Like any brand, not everyone's going to like it, or any person, not everyone is going to like them. So kind of knowing that going in, like, there's going to be people who are like, that's bad advice, or I don't agree with that. Well, I'm not doing it for you. I'm doing it for the people who are liking it. So kind of keeping that in the back of your head too, and just brushing it off, honestly.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. Now, TikTok, wild wild west, as you said, have you figured out a method to cracking the code or so, because you eventually got to a really big following and a lot of views?
Yeah, I'm not sure that I've cracked the code. I think I found ways to engage with people or kind of hook them early on by quickly addressing my audience by saying, like, if you're in your 20s, this is for you, or advice for your 20s, very straightforward. And that's kind of what I try to continue to do. I found things that worked. Like my first million view video was an advice for your 20s. So I decided, okay, let's make a series out of this because it seems to be getting views. So honestly, sometimes I say it's like throwing spaghetti at the wall and seeing what sticks. You just have to try a bunch of things and kind of build off of that.
Yeah, it's truly a crazy platform, because none of the ones that have, that you and I have grown up with, Facebook, MySpace back in the day, Twitter, they're all great for getting out a message that you have to share, a business that you're promoting, but it's not quite like TikTok. TikTok is, you can make your first video and it can blow up, which is crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. Really cool.
Now, so let's go back. So you're 29, almost 30. When you were 21, 22, what were the things that you were freaking out about?
Oh gosh. Well, I graduated college at 22. And so I think I still sort of had that bubble mentality of like, I just got out of college and, life is great. And I'm just going to go get a job because I have my degree, and didn't really have that realization of like, oh, wait, it's not that easy. So I had a quick, reality check, had to move home with my parents, couldn't get hired. So definitely the freak out of reaching the real world was hitting me pretty hard at that age.
And then, so dealing another kind of crazy time in our lives, the pandemic over the last year and change, another thing that could cause you to freak out a bunch. How did you not let yourself get either super emotional or freaking out about whatever it is?
I certainly had my moments, I'll say that, but I've realized as I've gotten older that everything in life is about perspective. Anything can become an opportunity. So after about, March, April, having the months of like, whoa, what is going on? I sort of changed my mentality and was like, this is kind of a neat opportunity to spend more time with my family, or, reconnect with friends via FaceTime that I'd probably talk to once a year, or start a side project. So instead of being down in the dumps, like, I'm missing out on this last year of my 20s, or it's hard to work, or the stock market's crazy, all the bad things, I kind of tried to change my perspective a little bit.
That's exactly what you should have done. I love that you said that, because this is the only thing, and hopefully it doesn't happen again in our lifetime, but this is the only time in our lifetime that every single person in the world will be dealing with the same crisis. So there was really no point to, or no room for feeling bad, sorry for yourself, because, the virus isn't discriminating. It is truly affecting everyone. And so you just kind of got to roll with the punches,
Right.
figure it out, and and move on. And so I absolutely love that mindset that you took.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what do people, because I imagine you get a lot of interaction on your various social media accounts, when people get in touch with you, what do they say? What are they looking for?
It falls into about 4 different buckets, I would say. It's either about career advice or figuring out what you're passionate about in life. It's about dating and relationships. It's about friendships, and then confidence. So they all sort of fall into those categories. And it, can vary depending, but usually it's about advice on, what do I say to this guy? Or I'm having this with my friend, or I don't know what I want to do with my life. And, all the thoughts that cross your
Been there.
mind in your 20s. Yeah, exactly.
Okay. And so I would love to go into some of those buckets. So someone comes to you and says, hey, I'm 24 and I just cannot find a guy, or I just cannot find something long term. What's my problem? What do you say?
Usually, I always start with addressing how people feel about themselves, because I'm a big believer that what you're putting out there is what you're going to get. So if you're constantly thinking, I always get cheated on, or I can't find anybody, then that's sort of what you're telling the world or the universe, not to get too out there, that that's what you're expecting. So I always go into like, let's change our mentality about what we want first and foremost. And then, more surface level things about, okay, well, how do you feel like confidence wise, or what are you putting out there on the apps, or maybe try this, something a little more like big sister advice. But first and foremost, I always like to address how we feel about ourselves, because I truly believe if you are confident in yourself, then you're going to be confident in your decision making in all these other areas of life, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I love that you put it that way, because oftentimes when we have problems, or if we're unable to get a date or whatever it is, we like to externally cast blame on other people rather than look inward, because it could never be our fault. We could never be the problem, but maybe
Right.
it is. It is our fault. So you do have to ask yourself some really tough questions when you're in those situations. So I'm glad that you've done that. Career advice. All right. Someone is 26 and says, you know what? I just left this job. I hate that industry that I got a degree in. I need to make a complete change. What do I do?
Yeah, this one I can relate to pretty specifically. At 27, I decided like I'm so done with the fashion industry. I'm starting over. I hate this. And it was probably the scariest thing, because I think the main reason we're so scared to start over is because all of our friends seem to be getting promoted and moving up in their career. And you feel like by this age, I should be at this point in my career. And honestly, I find people that decide, I'm done. I hate this. I'm going to move on, are ahead of other people that are sticking with their career simply because they're too scared to leave.
Yep.
I'm like, you know what? Don't worry about being behind. You're actually ahead because you're trying to find what you love, where other people are going to stick with something for 30, 40 years and be like, well, I didn't really enjoy what I did, but that's what I did for, a majority of my life. So my first reaction is always like, good for you. This is exciting. Don't be scared.
Yeah, that is awesome. And I think we're starting to see a generational shift where before our parents would be like, for example, I have a bunch of friends recently within the last year that have quit jobs, that are considering changing jobs just because they just really don't like it. Parents would say, who cares? It's a job. It puts food on the table. It's a paycheck. Everyone's supposed to, work is work. You're not supposed to like it.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, me and you would say, no, I want to enjoy what I do. I want to feel like I'm giving back to the world. I want to feel like I'm making positive contributions, and that I get some sense of fulfillment out of it. So it is a generational difference for sure.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Let's see. There was one more thing I want to ask. Oh, okay. So, as you said, you're almost 30. I am 20. God, what am I? I'm 25. And for some reason, we all think that we just fall off a cliff at 30, that we need to have it all figured out by that number or something, that we're in the prime of our lives and our careers and our social lives right now, and that it just all goes downward because, in your 30s is when you're supposed to be having kids and getting married, if you're not married already. And then that's when you really have to buckle down and buy a house and do all of these things and really settle down. Do you think that's the case?
No, it's actually funny you said that. I just made a video on this the other day. saying, what if I told you that your 30s are the time of your life? Would that take the pressure off your 20s? Like, what if your 20s were just meant for you to fail, figure it out, try new things, and that was it? That's no pressure. Your 30s are the time of your life. Just figure things out in your 20s. It's okay to fail. And I got a lot of good response from it. Like, wow, thank you for saying this. I feel like there's so much pressure to, like you said, have it all figured out and know what I want to do. And, now in my 30s, I have to get married and have kids. And that's great if you do want to do that. But I honestly feel like I like myself so much more as a 29-year-old than I did at any other age in my 20s, because I know who I am now. I know what I want out of life, and you just feel way happier. So I'm really excited for 30 and what that has to bring. And I certainly don't feel like, oh my God, life is over. But I will say when I was 25, I had that same mentality of like, oh my God, she's 30. Like, she needs to get her life together.
She's old.
Yeah, totally.
So you say that you've figured out what you want out of life right now. If you don't mind me asking, what is it that you want?
It's funny. I have struggled to find what I was like truly passionate about, like many people, until I started this account. And I've always known that I would love to like give back, especially to young women, because I struggled so much in my 20s with like emotions and this and that. And although I'm not bringing in a full-time income from this at this point, it's certainly something that I want to focus on and see if I can build a business around it. So that's kind of where I'm at, which I'm excited about.
Okay, that is awesome. I wish you all the best in that endeavor. Again, Jillian Bennett, follow her, fullyfriday.com, @fullyfriday, IG, TikTok, putting out a bunch of great stuff there every day, sometimes multiple times a day. Advice that is great for me and for all the listeners of the show that are trying to figure it out. Jillian, thank you so much for joining me, and we'll talk again soon.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This was fun.